Hey there, this is Lexi, and I just wanted to give a little introduction video on the content that I'll be covering in this channel. So, I will be covering everything from cult psychology, the psychology of evil, the psychology of perhaps serial killers, and also personality traits as well. So, I'm pretty obsessed with all things cult psychology, personality psychology, and particularly the psychology of evil and bad guys. So, where did this obsession start? About 15 years ago, I picked up this book randomly off somebody's bookshelf, and I said, "Yeah, you can have it." And I was immediately sucked in. This is Seductive Poison, and this is all about Jim Jones and the People's Temple. And this is written by Deborah Layton, who was in the People's Temple for some time. So that's really what started this deep infatuation with all things cult and cult leaders. And of course, I stepped away from this special interest for a while because it's pretty dark. I'm a pretty sensitive person emotionally, so I had to take breaks from this dark kind of content because it gets to me. I don't find myself scared of psychopaths or serial killers. But the destruction they cause breaks my heart and makes me sick, literally nauseous sometimes. So, and I feel that way about all narcissists in the world. I just feel that they are the epitome of selfishness and evil. And my part of my job is to teach people how to properly identify characteristics so that they can steer clear of these very insidious people. So flash forward a little bit. Last year, I started working a little bit on a book. I didn't really think it was going to go anywhere. It was just something I wanted to do for my own mental health. So last year, I picked up this book, Helter Skelter, by Vincent Bugliosi and Kurt Gentry. So Vincent Bugliosi was the main lead detective on the case for Charles Manson and the Manson murders. And this is just a very straightforward, factual account from Vincent Bugliosi about the case. So I picked this up at Barnes & Noble last year, and I had this fantastic idea of doing this character study of Charles Manson to develop this character for my novel. And so flash forward a little bit to now, I'm about almost halfway through my book. The main character is somewhat inspired by Charles Manson, somewhat inspired by other individuals, and I'm pretty excited to see where that character development goes. And studying psychopaths and narcissists and cult leaders has been just fantastic for the creative process of really crafting this novel. So, a little bit about me. I am trained as a mental health professional. I worked at a community-based outpatient clinic for about 5 years, and then another clinic for maybe about 4 months, treating similar populations. So I have treated everything from domestic violence or intimate partner violence, particularly survivors. I worked with substance abuse, all sorts of substance abuse. I am trained in something called eye movement desensitization reprocessing, or EMDR. And that is a technique that master's or doctorate levels clinicians can be specifically trained in, separate from their education and degrees, a separate training that allows them to ethically and carefully and safely help somebody process traumatic psychological events, PTSD, or possibly other diagnoses, essentially helping them flow through traumatic memories to remove these blocks in, negative cognitions we hold about ourselves, the world, etc. So those of you who may be familiar with trauma-informed treatment, all of that lingo is going to sound familiar to you. If it doesn't, and you're like, what the heck is all of that? Ask me. I will point you in the right direction to learn about EMDR and other trauma therapies, because this is something we will heavily get into with cult leaders, especially what we see with Jeff Ion and Shalia Ion, or Divine. And we've seen this in Scientology, we saw this in NXIVM. These creeps, these narcissist, psychopath type people, they will exploit techniques from psychotherapy, which ultimately harm people because they do not have the proper training. They do not abide by any of the ethical codes that I abide by, and every professional needs to abide by, unless their license will be on the line. That's just how professions go, and narcissist, of course, is oblivious to, oh, that doesn't apply to me. I'm above that, right? So again, we'll get into that ridiculousness, but so there, you know a little bit about me, you know a little bit about my morbid interests, as many of you have the same morbid curiosities as I do, and I hope to connect with you on that level. What else? What else do you want to know about me? I've been pretty open about my mental health. I struggle with clinical depression and anxiety. These are issues I've had since childhood, and I am now on a hiatus from the field of mental health and substance abuse to really tackle this deep depression that I've been experiencing for a long, long time. So I get into that a little bit on my blog, mindfulcatlady.blog. And I talk a little bit about my healing process, my spirituality that blends into that. And more recently, I've also been exploring cult phenomenon and things like psychopathy and mental health. So I've covered Jeff and Shalia Ayan and the Twin Flames universe cult quite extensively on my blog and my podcast. And that's Don't Drink the Flavor Aid on Spotify. And this first season that I have 6 episodes, I talked quite a bit about Jeff, his psychology, Shalia, and my thoughts on her psychology and the personality. Of course, I went into the grandiose narcissism, which you will see in every single cult leader and other bad guys. And so I covered them quite extensively. I also drew in similar features of what we see of NXIVM and Scientology, just in terms of these cuckoo, pseudo-scientific, pseudo-psychotherapy terms they're using to really F people up further. These are, people who are coming into cults sometimes have full-blown PTSD, like clinical diagnoses that need to be properly treated by people who have their best interest in mind, and not a guy who bought a new Porsche and a Mercedes off the money that he exploited with his MLM. Okay, well, you can obviously tell that I'm real pleased with Jeff. I don't have a personal vendetta against narcissists. I think that they're irritating and annoying and they cause harm, but I'm not out to see them dead or see them hung. I'm out to educate people on how to avoid these people, how to gray rock them out of your life, and live a life where you are not coerced by someone who is a man-child or woman-child. So that's, I guess, in a nutshell. It's something obviously I'm pretty fired up about, as a lot of you are out there, those of you who are survivors, advocates, people who are just really effing sick of narcissists and their MLMs and their schemes, and thinking that they are better than people who have had years of education, years of experience in the field, different trainings, and, have empathy with narcissists, tend to be rather low in. And that's not necessarily their fault. And while they are accountable for their terrible behavior, again, sometimes narcissistic people are born with naturally low empathy. And that is a fact. And it doesn't destine them to be bad people, but it does mean that as children, they're going to need a lot more conditioning and careful, gentle coaching on how to appreciate other people's emotions on the cognitive level, because they're not going to innately, effectively, in their body, in their mind, say, oh, I made that person sad. I need to amend this. They're crying. Whatever. Because it doesn't register to them, right? So it's not that they are destined to be cruel people, but they're destined to look out for number one. And again, that's something that can be properly socialized in childhood, but if it's not, or the child is overindulged, underindulged, different types of developmental disruptions, which isn't necessarily due to bad parenting. It might just be due to different circumstances. And of course, even divorce, which has become a kind of an epidemic, if you will, can also disrupt somebody's childhood development as well. And the narcissist is not immune to that. Narcissists and psychopaths, they do want connection, but they get it in very extreme ways because they don't have that part in the center of their brain called the amygdala, which is our fear and threat center, right? So for me, my amygdala is like, it must be the size of an apple because I'm always looking out for, ooh, that person looks kind of suspicious. I'm not really sure. I think I'm just going to be a little wary and a little cautious. Or, oh my gosh, okay, that person's getting a little heated. Maybe I just need to leave the situation right now because I'm feeling uncomfortable. Narcissists have that to way less of a degree, and psychopaths have pretty much none of that, right? So they will make direct eye contact with a stranger. They won't look away because that doesn't activate that, ooh, this is a strange person and this is really intimate and I kind of just want to back away. They don't have that, right? So this is where cult leaders and serial killers and people with these traits, they tend to be incredibly charismatic because there isn't that shield there. And while many of them describe feeling empty inside because a lot of what they are is masking and mirroring you to manipulate you and get what they want from you, again, a lot of that charisma and that charm is really tailor-made for the people they want to draw into their scheme to get what they want from them. Because again, numero uno, right? I'm number one. I deserve the best. I deserve to be around the best people. I deserve to be recognized for the best person I am. Again, this is something that's normal in a 2-year-old because they have to be what's called egocentric, self-centered to get their needs met. So they cry, they throw tantrums, they steal from the cookie jar. And we have to explain to them, no, it's not okay to take a cookie. You have to ask permission. And if mom, dad, whoever says no, the adult in charge says, no, you can't have the cookie. We have to help you learn how to deal with that frustration of somebody saying no to pleasure that you want right now. Because toddlers are also very poor with impulse control, which we see with some narcissists and psychopaths. It's not necessarily mutually exclusive, but sometimes we do see the impulsivity there, which can really be even, can be sinister, although the cold and calculating, more the psychopathic type, Patrick Bateman types are really creepy because, they tend to really plot and plan methodically these gruesome murders that they carry out. So again, there's a wide range of variability in bad people like this, but there are certain traits that are pretty much standard in them. So I rambled on quite a bit about all of this, and again, my hope is that I'm going to continue to create informative content for you, whether that's on this platform, on Spotify, in written form. And I hope that you'll give me feedback on what you want to hear more about, what you don't really care to hear more about, different topics, different cases out there that are happening. I will be in my season 2 of Don't Drink the Flavor Aid, my Spotify podcast. I will be discussing female psychopathy, particularly what I would call the female psychopathy phenotype, because the more feminine type of psychopathy is different from the typical, more male-centered, okay? And that doesn't mean that a female serial killer isn't going to have like a male MO in terms of like how she carries out her nefarious behaviors, but it's much more likely that if she's biological female, she has female anatomy, she has a female type brain and nervous system. So her aggression and her lack of agreeability is going to come out differently than a Ted Bundy, where his aggression is coming out in pure, horrific, homicidal rage. So again, that really, what I want to do is just kind of strike that there is a difference in female stereotypical presentation of psychopathy and psychopathic behaviors. And then there's also the male presentation. And there is a lot of crossover. There's a lot of conduct issues that happen in childhood, adolescence. But again, there is a little bit difference in the flavors, if you will. So I hope that kind of made sense. I will be exploring that really in depth in season 2 of Don't Drink the Flavor Aid on Spotify. So I hope that you will check that out when I've got some episodes up. I will probably be working on episode 1 today, and I'm pretty excited about it. So yeah, stay tuned for more content and all things cult psychology, bad guys, evil, nefarious actors, especially the ones that are either currently imprisoned or will soon be. And if I have it my way, Jeff Ion will be in prison because he's done illegal things. So, Jeff, if you're watching, I hope you enjoy that orange prison suit that you will soon be donning. With that, I hope that you guys enjoyed this. And again, please give me feedback. Be kind about it, please. I'm sensitive. So, but again, I want to hear what you want to hear from me, what you want me to break down in simple terms. And of course, I'll also be talking about the spiritual jargon that a lot of cults also have latched onto. So that's something I'll also be covering in my content. So with that being said, I'll wrap up here, and I hope that you will join me for more content. Thanks, guys.